A shocking amount of the materials and features of a home are not what they appear to be. Either they're disguised so well that you don't even notice, or the substitution is providing some perfectly acceptable experience and you just don't care. I think that there's 5 expectations that we have for our homes that drive this deception, as well as our willingness to be deceived. Let's just start here with this normal siding that you'd find on any average house in the US. Siding like this, it has a pretty simple job. You just keep water out by blocking it directly, and then protect the more fragile waterproof layer that's behind it. This particular version of siding, it arrives on site looking like this, and it goes up in a series of interlocking layers. And the panels are made from polyvinyl chloride. That's a synthetic material that's used for everything from like plumbing pipes to music records to these outlandish pants. For siding, it's first rolled into sheets, and then stamped with a roller to impart a texture. And in this case, that texture is one that you might find after you've painted roughly hewn cedar wood planks. After the stamping, the PVC sheet is folded up into that corrugated shape, usually 2 or 3 bends in a single sheet. But neither of these qualities, the texture nor that specific shape, none of them do that much to improve its performance as siding. The reason that it undergoes these steps is to look like this, clapboard siding. That's when the actual wooden boards are stacked horizontally and overlapped on one another. This way of making siding developed during the early American settlement days in New England. And when this technique was developed, wood was plentiful, nails were expensive, and labor was really cheap. Clapboard siding, it uses a lot of wood, and not so many nails, and it takes a while to install, so it's perfect. Over time though, wood has become more scarce, nails are almost free, and labor is expensive. The PVC or vinyl alternative developed in the late 1950s. And now it's the most popular material for siding in American homes today. It can take a wide variety of shapes and colors. The most popular types of vinyl siding are the Dutch lap, the board and batten, shakes, and scallops. And all of these, they come from traditional wood construction techniques, just molded into plastic approximations. Siding on a house is not just doing its job, it's also displaying how it's doing its job. And we often prefer it to look differently than it performs. We often have to adapt modern construction methods and materials to mimic antiquated or cost-prohibitive ones. When we do this, we're making buildings look less efficient than they actually are. We turn a blind eye to reality so that we can stick with a story about our home, and these stories play out in unique ways in each part of the house. This is a basic farmhouse that you might find in the Midwestern United States, and this will be our model. For the 5 drives for domestic fakery, these are pretty universal, and the lessons from here can be applied to assess a wide range of housing types that you might experience. Construction usually begins with the foundation, which anchors the structural elements into the earth. It keeps the house from sinking, shifting, or blowing over. Inside of the foundation in some regions is a basement, or traditionally a cellar. This space stays relatively constant in temperature over time, and it might be where food is stored. But despite these pragmatic roles for the foundation and structure, those are both common sites for exaggerating or disguising the efficiency that modern materials offer. For instance, a traditional foundation, it might be made out of stone. Yet today, they're more economically made from concrete or CMU blocks. Popular products will cover these smooth materials with thin layers of stone to give them texture. It also gives them visual weight and an exaggerated sense of workmanship and solidity. This makes the home seem more permanent and strong than it would otherwise seem, despite the fact that it offers absolutely no structural value. The same structural theater continues above ground as well, and I'd venture to argue that this provides the greatest opportunities for embellishment and effect. And that's because in traditional construction, the joint and workmanship of wooden members is often a source of pride and craftsmanship, and it's on display. It's also where regional techniques evolve uniquely as vernacular, or even into a new and distinct style. This is the Tudor style, for instance, and that's where heavy timber framing, it remains visible on the exterior of the building. It was popular in medieval England, and timber members would have been filled in between with wattle and daub, a woven wooden matrix, and a mixture of wet soil, clay, sand, animal dung, and straw. Today, the look of the wooden frame is achieved with an extra layer of trim over top that traditional wood frame construction. And since wood is prone to deteriorate and requires maintenance, alternatives like vinyl or fiber cement is often a preferable choice. Corbels, gable brackets, and even dentils are a similar sense of structural reinforcement where it's just not necessary. All these were developed initially for structural reinforcement and have stuck around long enough to become purely decorative options today. It's also common practice to wrap an exposed exterior column with a layer of wood to bolster its visual weight. All these make the house appear more physically stable and permanent. It increases the sense of safety and security, as well as the perception that the home is fully under the control of its inhabitants. The elements also project status and prestige, since a well-built and solid home is a symbol of success and social ranking. That's 3 of the 5 stories right there. While those might sound just superficial, that's just the first zone of the house. If we continue into the process of construction from the foundation and structure, the next element that we come to is the fireplace and chimney. Architects like to call this the hearth, which I know it's not exclusive to architects, but for them the term also starts to talk about how this fire feature is understood as the center or the heart of the home. According to scholars, fire has been at the center of homes across cultures and generations. It provides heat and warmth for our bodies and for preparing food, and these functions are necessary for our physical survival. The hearth also provides a point for people to gather around, and it strengthens our bonds between family members and the community. And like the foundation, the hearth is usually made from stone or brick. Both materials come directly from the earth. They're also worked into manageably sized packages and stacked. As massive earthen materials, they also retain heat well, and slowly release or absorb this heat when the temperature around them changes. So given this profound role that the hearth plays culturally, coupled with the inconvenience of how dirty it gets and the maintenance that's required, alternatives are often just a welcome substitute. Today, you have a wide array of choices when it comes to fireplaces. Some actually produce fire, like gas-powered options. They don't need logs, but that helps complete the look. Electric options can decouple the visual of the fire from the heat that it produces, which is convenient if the furnace is already turned up. And of course, it's not much more than just a thin screen, but surrounding the faux fireplace with added bulk and stonework, it helps sell the illusion. If you're not blessed with one of these in your living room, you can also tune your television to the 24-hour fire channel for that cozy feeling. Outside, chimneys are only really required for wood-burning fireplaces, but they're so much more attractive than all those pipes sticking out of your roof. So often, folks will opt to bundle all those pipes and vents and then shroud them in an ornamental brick-like accessory. While this is just about its outward expression, the internal and social psychological benefits of domestic fire fills inhabitants with the same benefits as the real thing. Homes also provide for health, so it's not just showy items that are important to display. Elements that control access to light, air, and water, which are all important for our health, these are faked as well. For centuries, shutters provided an excellent form of control over window openings, even before the widespread use of glass. Shutters allow inhabitants to block light and air by swinging them shut around their hinges. Louvered versions allow air to flow while blocking the warming rays of the sun. And even when glass is present in the window, they block the light rays before they enter the home, so they actually perform better than curtains or shades. In the winter, they also protect fragile glass from damage and provide a little bit of added insulation to keep the warm air in. Today, the vast majority of shutters are vinyl or aluminum, and they're fixed in place to each side of a window. Their uselessness for delivering on the shutter's initial function is telegraphed by their lack of hinges, and they can be found in configurations that could never cover the window that they're adjacent to.
It's easy to see how attractive shutters like these can instantly boost your home's curb appeal.
And it also magnifies the visual impact of window openings, making them seem larger and more significant than they are. Also drawing more attention to the windows might be those little strips of trim lining the glass in a grid pattern. In the past, large sheets of glass were difficult and expensive to produce, so smaller panes were framed up into a larger window, and this created a grid pattern known as muntin. Today, this pattern is purely decorative. Turrets, belvederes, balconies, all these things were about giving occupants access to light and air, bringing it in through the home, and these features provide healthy cleansing of the air and surfaces inside, but today they're often fake. In a house, openings are interfaces between the inside and outside worlds, so they protect an intimate interior while allowing select interactions with the surrounding environment. The elements that are often fake help give the illusion that these interfaces are slower filters for protecting the flow between the two worlds. Finally, the attic too is something that is faked or exaggerated with extra pitches in a roof, or dormers that don't actually provide any added space or light, or mansard-style roofs. I'm not going to dwell too much on how these things are fake so much as why. Attics are the highest point in a house, and their functional and spiritual opposite is the foundation or basement. And while the basement is heavy and rooted in the earth, the attic and the roof lightly point upward toward the sky. If the basement is about stability and rootedness in the world, the roofline and attic space is about things like storing memories as objects rather than food. It's like the basement is for your lizard brain and the attic is for your frontal cortex. It's a space for imagination and creativity. It offers a survey view from above for you to be able to assess and understand the arrangements and activities of the things that are happening below. The cynic in me just wants to point out the amount of fakery involved in providing what feels like an authentic traditional home. In some ways, we've found ways to deliver that feeling with the thinnest veneer possible. I also haven't even touched the interior finishes, which is an entire next level of deception. You know, it's fine to think that shutters look cute. I do too. They're often reflections of our history, our culture, and our deepest psychological needs. The charm of traditional features, even when they're just purely decorative, it fulfills our desires for comfort and security and a connection with the past. These often have the added benefit of appearing human-made and adding a level of perceived detail that some might call human scale. And while I agree with that, it's still just an illusion. These elements are usually made by machines to mimic other forms of construction in a superficial layer of deception. The idea that these embellishments are more human, I think, is really interesting for a number of different reasons. The foundation and structure, hearth, cladding, windows, and attic form a body of sorts from their individual functions. The cellar below is like the stomach, the hearth is the heart, windows are like the eyes, and the attic the brain. This is reinforced throughout literature and philosophy. Protection, health, connection, status, and control are important roles for a home that go beyond just keeping out water, standing up, etc. Therefore, I can see why these aspects are so critical for delivering on our sense of overall well-being. But I also think that it's funny that we try to make our buildings look less efficient than they actually are. It's also why form doesn't really follow function. Maybe it does for a while, but then it comes back around as just decoration. And that's okay. We're willing to go along with the deception as long as it looks cozy. The fakery of the typical American home with its vinyl siding and its mass-produced materials, it's severely disconnected from the natural world that the original construction would have been connected to. Substituting vinyl for wood has terrible downstream consequences for natural habitats because it uses petroleum and global shipping, and that's not even taking into account the planning issues like sprawl. But instead of just sitting helpless, overwhelmed by these big issues, my friends at Planet Wild have stepped up to offer a pathway to be able to reverse the damage that we're inheriting. As a nature conservancy, Planet Wild basically gathers a globe's worth of people who care about the planet and unites them around solvable issues. Each month, they collaborate with organizations on the ground working to accomplish goals like safeguarding endangered species or protecting marine life or rejuvenating forests. And this month, they're actually protecting the critically endangered little owl. The best part is that all this progress is powered by the Planet Wild community. Everyday people like us who just want to be able to make an impact. All it takes is becoming a member. Planet Wild keeps you in the loop on the work with these monthly updates and shares videos that show exactly how your membership is driving the change, from the quick wins to the bigger picture goals that each project aims to achieve. There's no set amount to give, just choose what feels right for you. And you can cancel anytime if it's not for you. In fact, the first 200 people to sign up will get their first month paid for by me. With your commitment-free 30 days, you'll be able to see what it's like and to see also the impact that you're making with the first video report. So if you're ready to be part of something bigger, scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the description and use my code Stewart8 later when you're ready to sign up. If you want to see Planet Wild in action, check out Planet Wild's latest mission by clicking on the video on the screen. Together, we can start making a difference right now. See you over there.